With Frozen 3 officially underway, fans have a ton of questions about what or who the beloved protagonists are going to have to save Arendelle from this time around. In the first movie, they had to save the kingdom from Elsa, who had unintentionally caused a deep freeze of the entire area, and in Frozen 2, Elsa and Anna had to save their home from the literal forces of nature. But who or what is going to threaten them in Frozen 3? Well, I have some ideas that might help answer that question for you. Starting off with one of the queens of the franchise, Anna might see herself taking on a role that's similar to Elsa's from the first movie. The idea that Anna could be the villain in Frozen 3 might sound a little ridiculous because of how kind and lovable she is, but just because she's a protagonist at first doesn't mean she won't or can't ever turn to the dark side. Just ask Anakin Skywalker. It took him 3 whole movies to become Vader, so all I'm saying is not to rule it out just yet. Anna would make an interesting villain or threat for the third movie because there's a lot that Disney can do with her character. For instance, the creators of Frozen could reveal that Anna had mystical powers all along that are similar to Elsa's, only hers were dormant until the fog was lifted in the second movie. If you remember, in the original Frozen movie, Elsa was so stressed out about anyone finding out about her powers, or worse, potentially hurting someone with them, that she hid herself away from the kingdom. But when the stress became too much for her to bear, Elsa lost control of her powers and put the entire kingdom at risk, essentially becoming the villain of her own story. Well, Anna is Queen of Arendelle now, and with that role, there is bound to come a lot of responsibility and added stress. Perhaps that stress will become too much for the young queen to bear, and without even realizing it, she will unleash a dormant power that not even her parents knew about. There's a chance that, much like Elsa, Anna has ice powers that just haven't been revealed yet. Should she get overwhelmed like her sister did in the first movie without having any idea of how to control them, it could bring about horrifying consequences for Arendelle. That's not the only reason why Anna might become a villain in Frozen 3, though. In the second installment of the franchise, despite Kristoff wanting to marry Anna, for some reason she seems to feel like Kristoff doesn't have strong feelings for her anymore. She was obviously wrong, but as most people know, intrusive thoughts like that can fester and cause you to become upset and irritable. In this case, there's a chance that Anna will continue to question her relationship with Kristoff, and in the process, she might become cold and lash out at other people. Out of the 2 of those possible plots, though, I hope that we find out that Anna has powers. I don't want to see anything bad happen due to Kristoff and Anna's relationship taking a sudden turn for the worse. However, I won't say it's not possible, but Anna can't be the only candidate for who the next villain of Frozen 3 will be, right? The next most obvious choice would be Hans, the very same one that almost convinced Anna to marry him and took over Arendelle in the first movie. It's no secret that Hans likely held a lot of resentment toward Arendelle, and likely even against the queens themselves by the time that he was apprehended at the end of the first movie. And because of the Disney short Frozen Fever, we know that his punishment wasn't as severe as it could have been. At the end of the short, Hans is shown shoveling manure from the royal stables back in his homeland of the Southern Isles. Well, when you think about it, that probably wouldn't have been the hardest punishment to get out of. I mean, if Hans wanted to and was smart enough to formulate a plan, he might have been able to escape his incarceration pretty easily, if you can even call it that. If Hans decided to escape, his first plan of action would probably be to seek revenge. Whether that means trying to take Arendelle by force or simply trying to eliminate Elsa and possibly Anna as well, it would only make sense for Hans to return in the third movie. Now, what if I told you that he might not even have to escape his punishment on the Southern Isles in order to make his return? That's right, the Hans theory might even work with him having the full backing of the Southern Isles and their military. You see, even though he wasn't shown in the movies, there's a lot we can learn from Hans' father, the King of the Southern Isles, through the novel A Frozen Heart by Elizabeth Rudnick, as well as the stories told by Hans in Frozen. The King of the Southern Isles is described as a strong and wise king, but can definitely also be described as a terrible father. He wasn't kind to his 13 sons, including Hans, and some fans even believe that he was the one who sent Hans to take over Arendelle in the first place. Although that in itself is just a theory based on the fact that he didn't throw Hans into a real jail cell, basically just giving him community service, it stands to reason that the king had more plans for his young son. This means that in the third Frozen, Disney might show Hans leading a fleet of ships to attack Arendelle, only this time it will be outwardly in the name of the Southern Isles. Think about it. An attack on Arendelle would benefit the King of the Southern Isles because it would not only give him more power and territory, it would also eliminate Elsa, a powerful and magical enemy. This would be an interesting plot for the movie because we would likely get to meet more of Hans' family that was left out of the first 2 movies. But also, the threat to Arendelle wouldn't be directly related to Elsa and Anna for once. Not that their ties to the plot were a bad thing in the first 2 movies, it would just be interesting to see Disney follow a slightly different formula for the third film. But what if the villain of the movie has nothing to do with Hans or the Southern Isles? One of the biggest threats to Arendelle in the past was their own King Runard, but just because he's gone doesn't mean that his ideas ideals have disappeared. As fans discovered in Frozen 2, during the battle between Arendelle and Northuldra, the king had many soldiers who were just following orders. Even if the majority of them didn't hold any malice toward Northuldra, there had to be a few soldiers who followed Runard specifically because they believed in his ideals for Arendelle. This likely includes his right-hand man, General Matthias, who, as you know, survived in the fog with the rest of the Arendelle soldiers. The general likely still holds his former king in high regard at this point in the story, and perhaps he's going to get tired of hearing any slander that might be said about him. He might even have a problem with the way that the kingdom of Arendelle is being run now that it's in the hands of a queen. Perhaps his old ideas will directly clash with Anna and Elsa's and cause him to feel the need to change things back to the way they were before the fog. This could potentially make him one of the most threatening villains that Anna and Elsa have faced so far, especially if he had soldiers backing him up. I mean, is there anyone more threatening than a former military general with outdated ideals trying to personally push for a change in the kingdom? Well, that brings us to the final character that I think would make an obvious choice for the villain of Frozen 3, who is just as powerful and threatening as any general. I'm talking about the original Ice Queen herself, Elsa. It's no secret that the dynamic between Elsa and Anna is going to evolve throughout the third movie simply because Anna is the new Queen of Arendelle, not Elsa. This means that, at least while they're in Arendelle, Anna will now be in a position of power when compared to Elsa, despite Elsa being the elder sibling and former queen of the kingdom. Whether they mean to or not, there's a very good chance that this will cause some sort of tension between the two siblings. If that's the case, the tension might lead Elsa to go against something that Anna says or possibly even demands of her while she's in Arendelle, which would definitely lead to a conflict. In this case, if Elsa is being backed by the people of Northuldra, that could also lead to a conflict similar to the one that they faced when King Runard was in charge. Now, you might be wondering why Disney would even consider making Elsa the villain of a story for a second time, and that's actually because that's what tends to happen with many of their antagonists. In almost every Disney sequel, the original villain from the franchise makes a return in some way, especially if the franchise is lucky enough to get 3 installments. In Aladdin, Jafar made his return in the second movie. In Cinderella, the evil stepmother was present in all 3 films, and in The Lion King, Scar's spirit returned in the Disney Channel series The Lion Guard. So it stands to reason that Disney will bring back a familiar face to act as the antagonist of Frozen 3. This could mean that Elsa will once again cause trouble for Arendelle, or maybe Hans will even make an appearance, as we speculated before. As of right now, there's really no way of knowing who the actual villain of Frozen 3 will be, but fans can be sure that Disney is not going to let them down. The important thing to note is that Frozen 3 is officially underway, along with some other massive sequels from Disney and Pixar, including Toy Story 5 and Zootopia 2. Frozen 3 is set to release sometime in 2025, though that's always subject to change based on the production process, but I'll be sure to keep you updated as information is released on the movie. For now, I'm curious, who do you think the villain of Frozen 3 is going to be? Let me know which of these theories you like the most in the comments below, and if you have a theory of your own, make sure you share that too.